So with all of these things, there's a common factor, right? And it seems to be that well-being is something that can be relatable, right? Well-being is something that you have a relationship with. And like everything in life, for a relationship to flourish, you've got to nurture it. And so we're going to look at different services that we offer here in Maidstone, from the NHS to the police to the Kent Fire and Rescue Service to the council to housing management, and look at the whole spectrum and look at how these services can help us to improve our well-being. And without further ado, our first guest speakers that I would like to bring up to the front is from the Kent Police Maidstone, and they're just going to join me up here at the front, so we can give them a round of applause as they walk up here, and they'll share a few words. So, who am I joined here with today?
So I'm PC Meg Smith from the Community Safety Unit at Maidstone.
PC Meg Smith. And we've got...
And most people know me. I'm Lee. I also work in the Community Safety Unit.
Lee from the Community Safety Unit. And last but not least, what's your name, sir?
My name's Harry. I also work on the Community Safety Unit with these guys.
Thank you, Harry. And if you guys could go to the middle a bit. So what we're going to do is just going to have a chance to talk about well-being and the services that you guys offer.
Over to me then. So we work in the Community Safety Unit. There are varying roles in police service, as most of you are probably aware. The role that we do is kind of about supporting communities. Hence, we working in the Community Safety Unit. So we have a bit more time to engage with communities, work with them, problem solve, and just generally support communities in the best way we can. It's not always easy, because that's the nature of what we do, but that is pretty much our role. We do various things. There's a lot of things that we have to do our best in what is sometimes quite a difficult job. It's not always easy, like I say, but our intention is always to try and help people. Sometimes that means arresting people, sometimes it means having to deal with them, but we're helping someone else by doing that. So it's all about still trying to get that well-being and community cohesion, shall we say, and generally making communities a better place.
I'm loud enough anyway, it's okay. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, perfect. I'm being really thrown off. I work, specifically Shetway Parkwood and Mangrave. I normally work with my colleague John. There we go. You'll see me in somewhere, so you might see me in the co-op Shetway quite a lot. You'll see me in Moat Park quite a lot, walking around Moat Park, which is probably my best part of the job. Love walking around Moat Park. Or you might see me at an address somewhere dealing with something. So I run surgeries in Shetway and Parkwood every month, so they're all published on the Kent Police website if anyone ever has any questions for me or any concerns for me. I love a chat. People say I talk too much, so even if you just want to chat, I'm more than happy to chat with anybody and signpost and help in any way I can. Equally, if you don't want to talk to me but you want a question asked, Maureen, our counsellor, knows me very well. She has all my contact details, and I always get back very quickly to her if you don't feel comfortable speaking to us or Christy, then yeah, talk to me. Go on.
Do you visit local schools and have presentations in there?
So So we have a separate unit for that. So in our community safety unit, in our office as such, we've got the town team. They deal with the town. And then we've got local beat officers for each area. So I'm Shetway and Parkwood. Lee and Harry are for Cox Heath. Linton.
Coxey, Lewes, Linton, Sutton, Tovel, you know.
I love my areas. And then we've got a child-centred policing team, and all of them focus on the schools, going into the schools, working with the schools. And then we also have our PCSOs. So we have one PCSO, Kirsty, who is here quite a lot with Christy, doing our fish fest. So we have young kids, trying to steer them. Who is that? We do a lot of youth diversion. So some youths you can kind of see they're going down the wrong path, and we try and steer them into the right places. So Kirsty runs Fish Fest, so she takes youths fishing to try and get them to stop being antisocial. So we'd rather have them fishing than out catapulting things, that kind of stuff. Or we've got crime cloppers, which Kirsty takes the children horse riding, and that's mostly young girls that go horse riding with Kirsty. And then we've got a new one that we're working on at the moment with Joe at the boxing club, and he's willing to have some children go there and try and divert them through the boxing route. And boxing's a lot about mental health as well, and like channeling that behaviour elsewhere. So we have a lot of stuff going on that we can do. So yeah, any questions, we're open.
I'll just tail off the end then. To touch on what you said actually, yes, we try and portray police in a better light, because it's not myths that police in today's society as well being communities, and communities are the first thing that we do, the first thing we focus on, is to change the outlook of policing, because far too many people nowadays think, oh, I see a police officer, something bad's happened. Not necessarily. We're here, this isn't a bad thing. Do you see what I mean? So we go to loads and loads of different community events across all the areas. Obviously Meg's already alluded to the fact she covers here in Parkwoods, and the fact that there's officers all over Maidstone that cover different areas. So multiple events like this, most of the time you'll see a police officer there, especially from the community safety unit, because that's our job, to try and get a better outlook on policing within your communities. I wanted to come here to kind of portray that message, really.
So really what you're doing is what old-fashioned bobbies used to do.
Exactly. Exactly.
I had a colleague I used to work with, and he always used to say to me they knew the local policeman, and his dad knew the local policeman more than he did, because he always take him on a strap in the corner and take him back home, and in them days the local policeman was known by everybody in the community. And I can remember a colleague I worked with called Granville used to tell me some incredible stories about how his dad knew the local bobby better than he did, because he was dragged down by his cuff of his collar. And he said that he would rather have a clip round the ear roll from the bobby than he would from the old man.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we are getting there with community relations. Like, if you go into co-op and said, oh, do you know who Meg is? They should. They should know exactly who I am, or the Vine Church. And to be honest, a lot of the group of kids now, if you said to them, do you know who Meg is? They would know who I am. So we are getting there. It's slowly but surely building those relationships up, which is why things like this is absolutely perfect, to get to know everybody and get some names to faces, and you can get some names to faces as well. It's really important.
The barriers down.
Exactly. Yeah.
And misconceived ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Round of applause for Kent Police. Right, so next up on our agenda, I would like to welcome a man who is very inspiring, all right? And a man who has a focus and a genuine passion for mental health. A man who is just a natural leader, but also, guides the youth, extensively in his work. And he's very keen on community, like he always says, community. And despite all the things that he has experienced, throughout his life, that for some people can be, just completely shattering, he has managed to, have such a resilience in overcoming those things and still, have a life which I would like to say is full of well-being. So, ladies and gentlemen, please help me to welcome His Worshipful Mr. Mayor, Councillor Martin Round.
Thank you so much, Destiny, for those wonderful words. Perhaps I should give them a bit more explanation, because some people don't know me as well as you do. Yeah, I mean, I am the mayor. Because I'm the mayor, everybody expects me to be the figurehead, and often the figurehead of everything that's good and right. Um, when I walked into this room, I heard many words, many even confessions, many statements, many beliefs. There were a lot of good words expressed, but my first instinct was none of us are perfect. None of us are perfect. Many of us make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes and accidents happen to us. Sometimes they're of our own making, sometimes they're of somebody else's making. The art of well-being is recovering from them and coping with them. That's not always easy. It can be mighty tough for many people. I was one of them. And it may surprise people when I confess to this. I've tried committing suicide 3 times in my life. I did that at a time when my life was very, very cruel to me. I was one of the world's most successful people in the 80s. I was rich, I had everything I needed. Basically, at that time, it was a big, posh, 4-bedroomed house, a swimming pool, a company car, a helicopter that took me to work. I was one of the world's aspiring people that got the greatest success out of the 80s. I was then a managing director of a multi-corporation. Most people will have heard of it. It's called PepsiCo or Pepsi-Cola. I was a European International Director of Operations for their fast food company. That European Director of Operations was basically nothing to do with Pepsi-Cola, the drink, because PepsiCo run massive food operations, and my history, my career was based on food, mainly on chicken and egg products. One of my responsibilities was introducing Kentucky Fried Chicken to this country in the 1980s. Little did I know how successful it was going to be. I mean, I did imagine it was going to be fairly successful, but I then finished up not only running Kentucky Fried Chicken throughout England, Scotland, then it was Wales, then it was Ireland, then it was Denmark, then it was Iceland, then it was France, then it was Holland, then it was South Africa. And I was still called European Operations, even though I was in South Africa. That was the chicken world mainly, and supplying a supply chain, as it's known. How do you get the chicken? Where do you get the chicken from? Not only making a shop and all the other things that went with it. And controlling millions of pounds worth of money in the 1980s. So that would have been worth billions now. I left the chicken world of Pepsi-Cola and then went into the egg world, and a certain lady called Edwina Curry, who very few people will remember or know if you're under the age of a certain age. Edwina Curry then said all the eggs in this country are tainted with salmonella, when I was actually exploring the egg business. Having said that, she made my business very, very successful, because the bad news meant that my company, I had just mastered the art of pasteurising the egg. Everybody had pasteurised milk, they pasteurised everything else. I was responsible for a company that just mastered the art of pasteurising egg at a time when microwaves were just going into people's kitchens, and cooked chill food and microwavable dinners were available in Marks and Spencer's. It changed my world. I became very successful, even more successful, and pretty mega rich very quickly. And yet there I was about to go and sell this food product that I developed to a company called McCain, when somebody drove straight into me. I had the world's most colossal accident. And if I can just borrow that chair here for those people that can't see it. To all intents and purposes, I may look fairly ordinary. I look okay for my age. Hopefully I do anyway. I don't look too badly, and I can put on a decent suit and cover up a multitude of sins. But if I sit down, I'll show you that I'm quite, I hate the word, disfigured and somewhat disabled. I'm standing and walking fine. I feel fine. But bearing in mind I was very successful economically and professionally, I'd also been selected to play for England rugby team. I was also a pretty successful rugby player. Most things in my life were success. They were richness, they were wonderful. But as I sit down, you might start noticing a few other things. As I sit here, you will possibly see this. You may not. That leg is 3 inches shorter than that one. 5 centimetres in new language, 3 inches in old language. On the inside of my shoe are what known as prosthetics to raise the inside of me here. From this knee onwards, up here, into here, there are titanium plates. There is a plate down here, a plate down there, and pins across here with a big plate here. When I go through an X-ray machine, particularly at Amsterdam Airport, it looks like a sawn-off shotgun stuck inside my leg. Even now, it's agony, but I cope. This knee was completely obliterated, and that is the only bit of me, this arm is the only bit of me that really is totally me. Because as I move to the other arm, that's all I can do with that one. I can't do any more with that, because half of this elbow has been cut out. Because when I had a road accident and that person drove into me, straight, direct, I was only doing 23 miles an hour. He was doing 78. I also had a 7-ton truck behind me. It was at the top of the hill. I couldn't see it happening. He shouldn't have been able to see me at all, so why he overtook, goodness only knows. But it was a head-on collision, so the dashboard came straight in, broke all my leg and knee around this area. The camshaft came up here, broke the elbow, and took the arm out. 1989, very few cars had airbags. Luckily, mine did. Executive cars were probably the only cars that did have airbags in those days. But the airbag meant my face went straight into the airbag, but the steering wheel went straight into my chest. The whole engine came forward. My foot touched the brake because I wanted to touch the brake. It's the instinctive reaction. Nothing broke to the knee. From here onwards, it was a bag of chips. The bag of chips are still inside me, some of them. Executive car again. I had a glass sunshine roof. So as I went forward, the glass sunshine roof all smattered and went down here. And still to this day, if I sunbathe in the sun, I get spots with glass coming out. I basically live in agony 24 hours a day with a hip and a base of spine that is really wonky and is commonly known by the surgeons as a shepherd's crook spine. I depend on, well, I carry morphine. I don't always use it. But I have a number of forms of tablets that are regularly available to me. But it can be 35 years to cope with. After the accident, I was potentially between life and death for 3 days. I was in a coma for 3 weeks. 3 months later, they actually said, "You'll never ever walk again." So I think I've done pretty well. But back to the point of being here. When I started trying to cope with life after being a successful sportsman, successful businessman, and a bit of a a celebrity in other shapes and forms, I thought I was a complete failure. I thought I'd lost it all. I didn't want to live the rest of my life in a wheelchair. Every time I tried to get out of that wheelchair, I kept falling down. I thought, what was the point? So that was the first occasion when I actually tried to commit suicide. For 7 years, I struggled to get out of that wheelchair. But for the fact that it still is a lump in my throat talking about it, and there's a few tears welling in my eyes now. But for certain medical professionals that helped me, then I probably would have succeeded in committing suicide and probably wouldn't be here. So whilst an accident nearly killed me, it would probably been suicide that was made me closer to death than the actual accident did. The only way I found my own well-being was by having a sick sense of humour and a rigorous fortitude that was probably described by others as being pompous and arrogant. But that sense of humour really helped. The other thing that really helped, and I'm going to get back up now, were words that I saw when they were up there when I came in. And there are other words that I've seen here. And I keep on emphasising it, and Destiny, you said it. Community, community, community. We're all part of a small community. We may be part of a small church community. You may be part of a larger Shepway or Parkwood community. You are part of a Maidstone community. You are part of a Kent community. You're part of a Britain community. You're part of a world community. The best way community works is all when we live for each other, work for each other, live and help each other, coordinate and love each other. And if we can all give each other a bit of love and give each other a bit of understanding, and words I also like to use, especially when I see uniformed people over there, is a bit of respect and a bit of responsibility, not only for others, but for yourself. When somebody talks about cleanliness and things like that, that's about self-respect. You have to have self-respect and you have to have respect for others. And if you're in the community, and this is where Maureen and I are completely different politics, but I bet she and I have one thing in common. A, we're community activists. We believe in community and community and community. But the other thing I know that we will always believe in is that people have to come first. People are what our community is all about, and people is something that we always have to learn to cherish and love. And if it wasn't for other people, I definitely wouldn't be here. An occupational therapist, a psychiatrist, and what's known as an occupational therapist really got me through. They basically thought the best thing they can do to Martin is take him in his wheelchair to a swimming pool and throw him in a swimming pool. And from that moment I realised it's like a metaphor. Put you in a really difficult situation. Not only did I learn to float, I was a very good swimmer. But after 5 years of never doing anything other than a wheelchair, most of my muscles were very weakened. So I had to regrow those muscles and that strength again. But as a metaphor, physically I started rebuilding, and then mentally I started rebuilding. I eventually went onto a Zimmer frame. I then eventually went onto walking sticks. And then I started to regain some strength and mental composure. Unfortunately, I had another titanium implant as well. That did help. And I just grew in strength and found another career, another background, although what's known as I transferred a lot of the skills from that. But back to where Destiny was originally when he introduced me, is that it is about mental fortitude, but you need to find it. It's very difficult for some people to find that. And if you can find it in a community group, in a church, in a youth group, wonderful. But what you will be doing is you'll be doing it within a community, and that's why I keep on saying community, community, community. You will find your salvation in a community, whatever that community is. You will find friends in that community. You will find common souls, common hearts, common loves in a community. But for a community to work, you have to give to it as well as take from it. And therefore, I could preach forever and take from all my own experiences, but the one thing that always gives me strength is my community. My community is basically Headcorn, 10 miles down the road. But my smaller community is Headcorn, my bigger community is Maidstone, where despite my non-affiliation politically with people like Maureen, is where I still find friends. Because we're in the same community together. And we just have to fight in a slightly different way for the same things that we probably jointly believe in. We're all different, let's face it. None of us are the same. So therefore, let's work it out together and learn to love each other a bit. That's the best thing about community. I'll stop now. Thanking you very much indeed.
Very well said. Very well said. And it's true, we all have different things that we go through, but there's always a common ground that we can come together and relate with. And I'm sure there's a lot more that you guys have in common that than you would like to admit. And speaking about, fitness, mental health, mental fortitude, and well-being, I'd like to also introduce health, and we have a speaker from the NHS who is going to come up next now and basically explain a few of the services that they provide regarding mental health. So help me welcome to the stage Sharon.
Thank you, everyone. I work for the Kent and Medway Mental Health NHS, specifically for Recovery and Wellbeing College. The Recovery and Wellbeing College offer 2-hour courses once a week up to 6 weeks. And we offer them in Maidstone, Canterbury, all over Kent and Medway. And we offer them free of charge to anybody who is 18 and above. Our venues are, we go to our local communities for free venues, so we are very much community minded and connecting with our communities. The courses we offer are all about well-being. People do not need to be in any type of recovery to come to our recovery and wellbeing courses. It is really purely to improve everybody's mental well-being. So some of the courses that are in Maidstone, and my colleague Sadie runs the locality here. I will leave her details at the back of the room if you wish to sign up, and I can sign you up today as well as a student. They'll be doing in Maidstone Haiku for Wellbeing, which is about writing your own type of poetry in a 5-7-5 format. So each line, the first line would have 5 syllables, the second 7, and then the next one 5. I found that particularly difficult for me, and for my journey going into Recovery and Wellbeing College and mental health has been a tense one. It's been a journey for me to find Recovery and Wellbeing College. I used to be a manager of lots of staff all over the UK. I've worked in social care, education, and then going through the menopause, I found that my world around me was collapsing. I found that I was finding it difficult to manage my usual day-to-day skills. My hygiene went down. My organisational skills was erratic. My communication skills was erratic. And I thought that I was going through early onset dementia. but through different tests, at 58 years old, I've actually just been diagnosed with 2 different types of ADHD and autism. Awaiting my autism assessment, but 2 types of ADHD. So that brought in quite a new perspective to my life and the anxieties that I'd had, and helps me support other people going through those similar challenges. And I also have dyslexia and dyspraxia as well. So reading and writing for me is not something I enjoy, but it's something I have learnt to enjoy. We also do wider wellbeing at Tyland Barn, which is a 6-week course, 2 hours a week, and it's outside walking in wildlife, going through Tyland Barn. They do different activities, crafting activities as well, plant identification, bird identification, other insects and different things as well. Learning about how being outside helps your mental well-being, and connecting with other students as well. And our student groups are a maximum of 12, so it's not over exhausted meeting different people. And then we do a Caring for Carers course, which is a 2-week course, and that's quite beneficial to people who are carers for young people and adults, and it might even be that you are a carer just supporting a neighbour, you know, because they're in our community, everyone. We also do Mental Health Toolkit, which is a 1-off 2-hour workshop, and we look at what people do for their own mental well-being. So we share, we're always sharing and asking our students to bring what they're doing, because they're the experts in their lives and sharing their experiences. And then we look at developing a toolbox of what we can go away and do to help improve our lives, whether it be journaling, whether it be being more mindful. So it might be that when you're making yourself a cup of tea and you've got a window in front of you, whilst the kettle's on, you might be running around doing lots of other tasks. But it's to be mindful in the moment by looking out the window and seeing the changes and the things that are happening out there in the world, so that you can, you know, learn to calm down, take 5. And also we look at other organisations and what they're doing and ask for guest speakers to come in. One of the new courses for this area is Exploring Psychosis, which is a 4-week course. So if you know someone with psychosis, have psychosis, that might be something, you know, you might wish to attend. And usually at the end of summer we have a summer celebration. But we do our prospectuses once a term, so you'll find people like myself coming out to groups to let people know what we have on offer, because, you know, we want to share that with everybody. They are free courses. Once you sign up as a student, you can go to any of our venues, any of our localities that we provide the courses. I cover Tunbridge Wells and Tunbridge, and our term we've got different courses. We've got menopause mindfulness as me. So as I said to you, that going through my journey of menopause, I found that I was changing as a person, and that's when I found out that I'd got, you know, neurodiversities in ADHD. And once I start medication, that's when the traits may come out more alarmingly of autism. You know, so my body and my mental well-being is changing all the time. But helping other people and supporting other people really helps me and helps. It's really good to see people on their journeys as well. So if you would like any more information, I'll be here. Do let me know, and I'll leave lots of sheets so you can sign up for a course if you wish to attend. Thank you, everyone, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Right, so next up on our agenda today, we are having lunch very shortly. So I know some of us might be hungry, might be looking forward to the lunch. We got some food and drink on display there, right, which is going to be part of our workshop, which is regarding triumph, nourish, and flourish, right? So everything to do with well-being, like I said earlier, is to do with food. But before lunch, very briefly, I want to bring up another guest speaker who is a counsellor in the local area of Maidstone, who, you know, deals with a lot of the community and is a very genuine person who gets involved, right? Because a lot of people who are in these roles and in these positions, it's easy for them to stay in their own spaces and just talk about what happens in the community. But not this lady, right? She goes into the community herself and gets involved, gets stuck in and relates with the people, right? And she's a very people's person. And I want to welcome her to the stage now to talk about resilience, community, and working with the youth and all the work that she does. So help me welcome Councillor Maureen Cleater.
Thank you very much, Destiny. Just a bit about myself. Obviously, as Martin has pointed out, we're two very different political parties. But again, don't be a councillor if you're not there to represent the people. And that means people who don't vote for you as well. I think that's really important to understand. So a bit about me. The accent tells you I wasn't born in Kent. I've lived here 40 years, but I was born in Liverpool, in an area that makes Shetwood, Parkwood and Mangravit look posh. It was a really rough area. It was an area riven with religious divide. My father was a Catholic, my mother was Church of England, so that meant you got beat up by both sides when I was growing up. But my mum died when I was 11, and my father was 35 and left with four young kids to bring up. I was the eldest, so I did the cooking and the cleaning and that. And basically, my childhood stopped then. Not because my dad was, neglecting us or anything. It was just that. Someone had to do it while he worked. Probably social services would be involved now because he kept working full time. But latchkey kids were common when I was growing up. But what was common where I grew up was community. Now, you didn't need CCTV in those days because we had aunties. No relation to you at all. But I can tell you now, if you did something wrong, by the time you got back to the house, your dad knew because you would have been reported. We also had a very good community about doing things ourselves. We had no money, but we collected all year round tins and we had a massive Christmas party in the community hall because that's what we did. We'd sort of worked out that the world didn't know us a living and we weren't going to get anything unless we did it ourselves. And we weren't slow at coming forward to moan because the first thing we were taught was how to moan to the correct department of the council. It was a very important thing in Liverpool to know who to moan to if something went wrong. But what it did teach me was resilience. I can't change the fact my mum died when I was 11. There's nothing I can do to change that. But what I could change and what I could do was how I brought my kids up. And that's something that I got from my dad. My dad lived in a very violent household. I have no photographs of my paternal grandmother. And when I asked why, years and years later at an uncle's funeral, it's because my aunt said there wasn't a day when she didn't have a black eye or a split lip or a mark on her. Because my grandfather was a very violent, unpleasant man. Now, my dad always told us women in the family, I had a choice. I could choose to be like my grandfather, his father, or I could choose not to be. And I chose not to be. And he brought up strong women. Women who don't raise your fists to me, because if that first punch doesn't count, there's going to be trouble. Because that's how we were brought up. We were brought up to stand up for ourselves. We were brought up to stand up for others. But we were also brought up to care about people. So on our estate, if there was a family where the children were struggling because the mum was struggling or the dad was struggling, then we fed them. They came in our house and we made sure they had one decent meal a day. And that's what community is about. It's not just about standing for councillors like me and Martin. It's about doing those little things. I'm going to quote now one of the greatest people ever, the late Bill Shankly, manager of Liverpool, the greatest manager ever. But what he said something was very important. When he was in the army, he was interviewed, and he said, when I was in the army, you got some terrible jobs. You know, peeling thousands of spuds or washing and cleaning. He said, but my cleaning would be better than your cleaning. And my spuds would be better peeled than your spuds. Because if everyone does the little job well and cares, then the big stuff then becomes achievable. This was my patch when I worked. I worked in Oxford Road. Like Sharon, I worked in mental health after a career change. And I worked in this community all through COVID. Got stopped by the police once or twice, had my letter on the phone to say, yes, I am allowed out, because actually the one group of people who really, really suffered was those experiencing mental health issues, because it increased their isolation. And actually me going out once a week, knocking on the door, even if it was just to take them to Moat Park and back, was something that said it kept us going. Now, one of the basis of mental well-being, and if you do any of the courses, if you're employed in mental health, they'll talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's actually something very simple. You've got to have some finance to pay for things. You've got to have a roof over your head, and you've got to be well. And if you've got that foundation, you'll cope with the rest. And also, it's about looking at, if work's going well, and home is going well, then people usually thrive. If work's going badly and home's going well, it's not great, but you'll have support and you'll manage. But if home's bad and work's bad, then that's when there's real issues, because you've got no break from it. It's there all the time. So what I would say for me is be kind, be mindful, because sometimes these people who you go to, the man who used to live next door to us did not accept charity at all. But if you'd knock on the door and go, John, do me a favour, I've made too much scouse, can you do us a favour? Because if my dad comes in and finds out I've wasted this food, they'll be, all right, girl, I'll take it off you. So we had a rota in the street where I lived on who was going to make too much food. So we actually got fed every day and had one hot meal. And he was absolutely adored by the children of the street. He was a lovely man, but he was a very proud man. And sometimes it's how we interact with people. It's no use, the likes of me knocking on your door saying, I'm your counsellor, I'm here like Lady Bountiful. That's not what they want. They just want normal kindness, sharing, and being part of a community. And I think Destiny said it, I'm not here to preach to you or, follow our agenda. Come here if you need feeding. And to me, and I wouldn't say I was a very good Christian sometimes, especially when the football's on, the swearing's quite rude in my house. Sometimes the best people for their religion, whatever their religion, is by deed. What do you do for people? How do you help people? How do you not judge people? And I think in a world that is very divided, being different is not a problem. Being different, whether it's a different religion, a different colour, a different accent, that's not a problem. It's what's in here that's important. And where you get people who are losing hope and losing faith, that's when they go to the extremes and will look to blame someone. Well, you can waste all your energy blaming stuff for all you like, but that's not going to change anything. It's back to, I could moan about the doctor that didn't diagnose me mum. I could moan about it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't bring her back to life. And that's something I learned later on in life, that you get rid of that anger, because I can't change it. That event has happened, and move forward and look at how you can be a better person, how you can help people, and how you can just support people, even sometimes when they're in your face screaming. I know for a fact how difficult the police's job is, because before Maidstone Custody Centre closed, I used to be a custody visitor to go in, and a lot of people in those cells were people in mental health crisis. And unfortunately, and Sharon will know this because I worked for the NHS and local government long enough, mental health has been chronically underfunded for decades. Doesn't matter which political party you was in. It's going to be a super tanker to turn round. And unfortunately, the group that had to pick up a lot of it is the police. And you have people in cells who are chronically unwell, when actually what we need is more beds. Now that's for a different argument, but when you see people acting out, sometimes just realise they're acting out because they're actually very, very desperate. And what we need to do as a community is to support people so they don't get that desperate. But it's been an honour to speak to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. And yeah, absolutely true what you're saying. I think that what we need to recognize is that there are things in life that we can control, and then there are some other things in life that unfortunately we can't control. Like the weather. You can't control the weather. You can't control whether it rains or shines, or whether it is hot or cold. I mean, in the UK, I'll be honest, we have some dreadful weather over here sometimes, right? But you can make the best of a bad situation, and that is evident through people's lives, like Councillor. And that's what we want to instill and develop in our community, right? And it starts with local mentors and local leaders, like the guest speakers that we've had today. And we want to build up the youth in a way that they will be the future generation that can become those next leaders, right? And so, although there's some things that we can't control, like the traffic, there's always traffic in these areas, right? Come on, man, what's going on with all these cars? We need to build some new roads or something. We need to come up with a strategy to reduce the traffic. But we can make the best of a bad situation. And so I want to leave you guys with that thought, that try and focus on the things that you can control and work and improve on those. And as we go into our lunch break, you can head into the conference room through these doors and grab a plate. You can head to the back of the room, grab a plate from the buffet there. We got all sorts of different foods, all sorts of cuisines there, some snacks, some healthy food. And just think about that during the lunch break, and then we will come back when we are done in about 15 minutes to start on our workshops, which are around the table, which are going to be very interactive, I might add, right? So we're going to be asking a lot of questions. We want to get some engagement, and obviously we're going to get a few people to come up and give some feedback on what they've learned today. And so I'm looking at a few of the youth, right? And when I say youth, I don't just mean young-aged people, right? Let's change the narrative a little bit, all right? When I say youth, I mean those who are young at heart. Okay, anybody can be youthful, all right? Anybody can be youthful. So it doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter how old you are. It matters about, your mentality, all right? Because we can stay young and stay youthful no matter how old we are, okay? So I encourage you guys to try the food, and we'll cue some music as we go into the lunch break. Tea and coffee is also available here in the corner. And we'll see you guys back in 15 minutes. Thank you.